You absolutely can have boundaries. Everyone can have the boundaries they need. You may not get paid what you want with boundaries. You 100% won't be liked, but you will be respected and you will be well. Those are the options.
Welcome to Daring Breakthroughs, the podcast obsessed with helping professionals at all levels build unstoppable confidence, gain crystal clarity, and create powerful networking connections to create a competitive edge. We share practical strategies and inspiring stories from daring people who have achieved remarkable breakthroughs. I know that if you can see it, you can be it, because I navigated my own career from Walmart to Wall Street. And my friend, you can too. I'm your host and the author of Break Up, Break In, Breakthrough, Jenn Landis. Today, I am joined by Dr. Sasha Shillcutt. She is a cardiac anesthesiologist, an entrepreneur, an author, and an international speaker, just to name a few. She's also the founder of Legacy Collective and Brave Enough. She has led sold-out women's leadership events worldwide. She's coached thousands of women and built a global community dedicated to connection and growth. She's been featured in Forbes and so many more publications. She is a TEDx speaker, a two-time author, and the host of the Brave Enough Show podcast with over 400,000 downloads. And these aren't all of her accomplishments. You all, I can't believe we get to have this conversation with Dr. Sasha today, and I know you are going to be so inspired by her story that you're going to learn from her wisdom and soak up so many wonderful tidbits in today's conversation. With that, let's go. So Sasha, I am so excited to finally be having this conversation with you. We have had a chance to get to know each other a little bit. Soon, we're going to be getting to know each other even better at Brave Enough 2026, which we will fill everyone in on before we end our conversation today. But first, I have to share one of the things that I just absolutely love about you is that you keep it real. You do not put on airs. You are so grounded, so relatable, and just so human. Yet you have accomplished so much, as everyone has heard in your bio. And here you are, choosing to join us from your car. I think you said you're in a parking lot of a bike shop, because you and I both know life happens, right?
Yes, and thank you for your generosity and your authenticity and your approachability, because you are someone that I've met professionally, but I instantly connected with. And I knew today, as my day started to lose control and my ability to do this podcast in my home studio became less and less a probability, that I was like, it's Jenn Landis. Like, I can be real with her. I can say, Jenn, I'm in a parking lot of a bike shop. Can we still record this? Because I really wanted to be here today and I wanted to spend an hour with you. And I was like, I knew instantly that you would tell me yes or no, and that you would be honest about it. And it would be either way a great result from, just a positive part of my day. So thank you for letting me keep it real.
Oh, absolutely. One of my big beliefs is that if you can see it, you can be it. And a lot of times we don't get to see it because people put on airs, right? They polish themselves for the camera. And I mean, we all do that. We are girls, right? In fact, I believe you talk about how you can have lipstick and leadership at the same time, and that's okay. So I'm a big fan in, putting on the things that we need to put on. But when we're fake about what the journey actually looks like, we're not helping ourselves and we're not helping anyone else. And breakthroughs are messy. Turning points are messy. They often come with a moment of crisis. And I think it's important that we're real and we talk about that so that we can enjoy that journey together and navigate the craziness that are turning points with authenticity and our whole selves. And so I'd love to hear about your turning point. Like, what was that moment for you when you said, I need to do something different here?
There was a moment in 2013 that I was walking through the W Hotel in Chicago after working an entire full day clinically in the operating room, flying to Chicago at night. I had 4 young children at home. I was completely burned out. I didn't have a term for that. And feeling like a shell of who I was supposed to be and who I always wanted to be. And I had my roller bag and I landed, I went to the hotel, I checked in, and I was rolling past a set of mirrors. In the lobby at that time, they had a long set of mirrors, like a wall of mirrors, all the way to the elevators. And I saw myself. I looked and I saw what I looked like, and I thought, this is not sustainable. And I don't like the person I'm seeing in the mirror. And it wasn't just my external appearance, right? I was overweight. I was unhealthy. I looked so sad. And around that time frame, I knew someone who was very accomplished that I looked up to who died by suicide, a physician. And I recognized that at this very moment, I could be that person someday if I don't make changes. And I went to my hotel room and I literally just collapsed on the ground in tears. And I cried for probably 2 or 3 hours. I maybe got 2 or 3 hours of sleep. I was there to do training for our new TAVR program that we were building. And I remember thinking, like, I don't even remember listening to anything that the people were teaching us the next day, because I was just so resolved that I could not keep living the life I was living, which on the outside looked really successful. I was winning awards. I just got my first NIH grant. I was speaking all over the country, but I was a shell of who I really thought someday I would be. And I did not remember the last time I laughed. I thought, when was the last time I went to dinner with my husband and I laughed? When was the last time I had coffee with a friend and I laughed? When was the last time I laughed at work? I don't remember that. And I just made the decision on that trip. I am going to say no to so many things. I have to start saying no. And I have to understand what I was meant to be here for, and it is not living this way. And I went to school for all these years to be this miserable. This does not make sense. And so I did not fix myself in a day. I didn't fix myself with a realization. It was a lot of slow things that were building up. There wasn't like one thing that happened, but when I saw myself in the mirror and I saw the person I was, I just realized, like, I have to change myself. So I did. I changed myself over the course of about 1.5 to 2 years. And out of that came immense clarity and growth that led to me starting a text group, which grew to a Facebook group, which grew to my company, Brave Enough.
That is an amazing story. I'm struck by the fact 1 to 2 years you changed your life. That actually feels like a kind of a short period of time to make the kind of change that you made. And I also want to say thank you for sharing that with us, because most of us, when we get to that pinnacle of success, we don't want anyone to see our cracks. We don't want anyone to see behind the curtain. And that alone is inspiring. When you said that you couldn't remember the last time you laughed, I've been in those moments in my own career, and I'm pretty sure there are people that are listening. And I would actually pause here and say, if you're listening to Dr. Sasha's story and you think about that, when was the last time you enjoyed that cup of coffee with a friend, or that moment of laughter? I think that question alone can lead to some pretty deep insights, Sasha. So thank you for sharing that.
I add one thing really quick, because I don't want to sound like I changed me. I don't think anyone changes their life alone. You don't. You change your life with help in community. So in that 2-year process, I got a coach. I got another coach. I found a community. I found friendship with other women. A lot of things. I did not change my entire life in 2 years by myself. So I want to be very clear about that.
Yeah. One of my pillar beliefs is that breakthroughs are a team sport. It requires a community, right? It takes a village.
Yes.
There's a reason we have all of these lovely, old sayings that go back to the purpose and the beauty of community and the power of community.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your personal why a little deeper. When it comes to career decisions, and you talk a lot about boundary setting. In fact, you have a book about boundary setting. You have, both of your books actually talk about boundary setting in one way or another. Grit and Grace and Brave Boundaries. So I'd like to hear a little bit about the why. We talk a lot about the why, but I'd like to hear yours and what advice you might have for listeners when they're trying to decide what their personal why is.
I realized that I've always had this desire to take care of people and in some way let people see their potential and what's inside of them and where they can thrive. And I now know that my why has never really changed that much from going into medicine to help people to now what I do where I help women stay in medicine. I truly believe that women, and whether you're in tech or education or law, or whatever you do, we have so many amazing ideas and creativity and innovation. We make such great leaders, and yet the world really doesn't support that and tell us that messaging. So my why is to specifically help people by helping them see their potential and by keeping them rooted in their authentic self where they can thrive in medicine. I don't want women to leave healthcare. That's one of the reasons I started Brave Enough, is I want women to feel empowered to work in a capacity that feels natural and authentic and good for them. And they're not sacrificing their well-being, like I was in 2013. And I think a lot of women struggle with careers, and it's not just in medicine where it's like there's two options, right? There's full-time employee, career ladder, burnout, or there's quitting. And there's a lot in between that can be achieved and you can find value in if you understand boundaries. So when people say, why do you do Brave Enough? Do you do Brave Enough because you just like to public speak or No, I do Brave Enough because I believe that women make amazing leaders. And in whatever field you're in, if you don't have women leading, you are not reaching your full potential for that company or institutional organization. And so I want to be the counterculture voice that tells women you can lead and be 80% FTE. You can lead and not take call and not, make work to the top of your capacity where you're like making millions of dollars, but you're burned out. Like there's a medium there that exists for different phases of your life as well. And you can do it. It just requires courage and it requires bravery.
It almost sounds like your why expanded. It didn't change, but it grew because it encompassed what you were already doing, but then this desire to help other women discover this same thing, that they didn't have to find themselves in the same place you were, looking at your reflection and being unhappy with what you saw. Rather, you could do what you set out to do in the first place, but then also bring others with you. That's
Absolutely
beautiful, I think. I also want to mention when you say this, you have, Brave Enough, the conference, you have Brave Enough, the podcast, you have Brave Enough, the blog, then you've got Brave Boundaries, the book. You have multiple ways that you are encouraging women. You also have courses, CME courses, as I recall.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So lots of ways that people can engage with this concept of being brave enough to set boundaries. So let's talk a little bit more about that. For years as a senior executive woman, right, there was a viewpoint, there's often a viewpoint that the higher up you go, the more freedom you have. And I did not find that to be true myself. The higher up I went, the more their expectations were, the more there were, demands on my time, the more my time was not my own. I was owned 24/7 by the role and by the company. And so the idea of boundaries for me was a fairy tale. In my mind, it was a fairy tale. And I'm sure there are some people that are listening to this going, oh, boundaries. Isn't that nice? I'm so glad she figured out boundaries, but I don't understand boundaries. How in the world do you go from that? And I'm being a little cynical because I've heard it and I've thought it. I was it before I made some pretty radical changes myself. So I'd like to hear from you when you're talking to that woman, the woman who says, yeah, right. What is like the first thing they can do, Sasha, to start understanding and setting boundaries?
So the first thing that you have to do is spend time with yourself every day. You have to spend time alone. And that's a boundary. That's boundary number one that I have all women that take my courses and come to my events and retreats and such. They learn this. And it's the very most important thing that you can do to learn how to set boundaries is to spend daily time alone with yourself, where you are doing a self-check-in and a self-evaluation on your biggest pain points in life and where you're missing those boundaries. If you do not understand that 95% of the problems that you're having in your life are boundary related, and that you don't know what boundaries you need, you don't understand what areas of your life are like a wild range with no gate, no fence, and there's wild animals roaming, you don't know where to start. And that self-evaluation requires energy. And most tired people don't have energy. And when they do have 15 minutes or 30 minutes alone, they doom scroll or they watch Netflix or they do something because they're like, I don't want to sit by myself. Sasha's telling me I got to sit by myself for 15 minutes, 30 minutes and journal. That's the last thing I want to do. That is exactly what you need to do, because in that space, you will find such clarity and get recharged on what it is in your life that is your biggest pain point and how to address it. It's kind of like people that don't want to look in their bank account, right? Because they don't want to look at all the bills they owe, or they don't want to look at like, oh, I don't want to spend time managing my checking account or looking at my bank account. I'm too tired to do it. That's like the worst thing you can do when you're in debt, right? Like the best thing you can do is stay on top of it and just start small and pay off the smallest debt. And it's similar when you're burned out and when you're overwhelmed and when you're at the top and everybody's telling you, oh yeah, you can't have boundaries. You absolutely can have boundaries. Everyone can have the boundaries they need. You may not get paid what you want with boundaries. You may not be liked. You 100% won't be liked, but you will be respected and you will be well. And so you have to make a choice on, do you want to be liked and make all the money and make everybody happy? Or do you want to be paid and compensated for your time well and maybe not have everybody like you, but be well? Those are the options. People, I would say the number one thing that women ask me in my courses, how do I set boundaries and be liked? And I say, you don't. If you think you're going to set all the boundaries you need for your own wellness in your life and have a career that in a male-dominated field, you will never achieve that if you do not accept that a percentage of people are not going to like your boundaries or they're not going to like you. And that's okay as long as you're well and you're compensated.
Man, such powerful words to live by. That really boils it down. I mean, there's some tough love in that statement, but it's absolutely true. And I wish I had someone speak those words to me earlier in my career. I wish I had learned that. I think I would have made very different decisions along the way had I understood it as clearly as you just shared it. So that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Not just you, Jen. It would me too. I needed somebody to tell me that just as much as you did.
Which is why it's so wonderful that you're out there talking about this now. I was recently talking to someone you and I both know, but didn't know it at the time. So I was talking to someone here locally. So I'm in Rapid City, South Dakota, and Dr. Sasha is in Omaha, Nebraska. And I was just talking to a physician here in Rapid City. We are a pretty small community here. And I did not expect this physician to know or to quote Dr. Sasha to me during our discussion. And we were actually talking about something very similar. We were talking about difficult conversations and the lengths to which someone will literally like burn down a building in order to not have to have a difficult conversation. They will destroy a relationship just so they don't have to have that difficult conversation. And I think it goes back to what you were talking about, which is this idea that you want to be liked and you want boundaries. And sometimes you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. And that's okay, because as you said, what's more important? Being well and having the life that you need and not being burned out because you've got boundaries. So huge lesson there. So let me ask this. What is another piece of advice, perhaps, that you would give to a younger version of yourself or to some of the women out there that are building their careers, that are more toward the middle to, beginning of their careers as they're starting out on this really the hustle that so many of us had to do at the very beginning to figure out these life lessons? What piece of advice might you give to women in that stage of their careers?
Love that you asked me this, because someone else asked me this 1 hour ago, this exact question, not on a podcast. We were just having a conversation. And this was a non-physician who was asking me, like, what would you have told your younger self? And it's something that I'm trying really hard right now to teach my daughter. And it might surprise some people, but it's who matters. And understanding who matters, because for many, many years early in my career, I took to heart every single thing that someone said to me, and every negative feedback and every comment and every snide remark or every email or every evaluation or anything that anyone said to me. I took it so personal. And I would repeat it in my head and I would evaluate. And not just did I take it personal, I changed because of it. And I would kind of try to shapeshift to just be someone I wasn't, which stole a lot of my authenticity and joy. And everyone will tell you, I think we get this advice all the time, like, don't worry about what people think. But that's not really the answer. The answer is know who matters. Like, know who matters in your life. Because if my husband is giving me feedback, or my mom is giving me feedback, or my best friend is giving me feedback, I better be listening, right? Like, or my boss is giving me feedback. But if maybe you have a boss that isn't aligned with your values or is immoral or unethical, or maybe you have people in your life that are not, again, aligned or ethical or immoral, and they're telling you something, you have to be able to say, their opinion of me does not matter. And everyone knows that about, like, the haters, right? Like, I get a lot of hate on social media because I have a social media presence and I'm talking about women. So I always get random comments, and those comments are so easy for me to just ignore. But the comments from somebody that maybe I work with, that I don't really know that person, but I work with that person, but they say something negative, that affects me until I go through the filter of who matters. Who matters? Does some random person sitting in a conference room that told me I didn't like her talk at all matter? No, because 90% of the people liked my talk. So why am I paying attention to the 10 that didn't? I don't know them and it doesn't matter. And there was zero constructive criticism in their comment. Whereas if I'm talking about something online and my husband says, I don't think this landed well. I don't think that you were expressing what you really wanted to express here. I'm going to listen because he matters. So the piece of advice I would give a younger me is know who matters, because you are able to filter comments, criticism, and negative things that come your way and not have it affect you in your next move and your next conversation. You just cannot please everyone. And if you spend your time trying to please the people that don't matter, you will end up disappointing people that do.
Wow. It comes back to intentionality. I think so much of what we've talked about here is about being intentional about who you listen to, intentional about the boundaries that you set. So many of these things in my mind as I'm listening and absorbing and just taking all of this in, because I still need to hear these messages. I don't think we ever outgrow some of these things, right? Or we learn them and then we forget them and we realize we've fallen back into old patterns of behaviors and thinking. My husband once put me on restriction from feedback. He told me I was no longer allowed to listen to anyone else's feedback. This was when I was a senior executive leader, because I was getting so much feedback and I was taking everything in, just as you illustrated, as you described, and I was letting it rip me apart. I couldn't even reconcile all of the feedback because this piece disagreed with that piece, and I was trying to do both of them depending on where I was. And he sat me down and he said, "I'm putting you on restriction from feedback. You're not allowed to listen to any more feedback, and I will not let you make any more changes due to feedback." Yeah. And it was a godsend, because it was a little bit of a moment of like, this is ridiculous. And I love you, so I'm going to hold up this mirror and show you how utterly ridiculous this is, and that you're taking it so seriously.
Yes. And I have found, Jenn, I don't know if you've seen this because you've been in senior executive positions. Women get a lot of feedback. Men are more afraid to give men feedback, and nobody's afraid to give women feedback. And it can be like whiplash sometimes, because this person tells you you're speaking too much, and then this person tells you you need to speak up more. And suddenly you're like, what am I supposed to be? And you don't know who you are anymore. So I love that your husband recognized that and saw that and changed and spoke truth to you. That is a powerful ally to have.
Yes. Didn't feel great in the moment. None of his support generally feels great in the moment because he's a warrior. So he doesn't pull his punches. But I'm so thankful for it, because we need those people in our lives who will speak that truth to us and tell us when we're just, we're not able to see it clearly ourselves. So we need others to help us.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of us hard charging, high achieving women who needed to hear this conversation, and specifically this concept about decide who matters. It's a big one.
Yes. And can we just go on a little tangent for just 2 seconds here? Because this is something that I have experienced, but not until a few of my clients experienced did I realize what it was. And I'm curious if this has ever happened to you. Recently, one of my close friends, who's an amazing physician leader, called me in the middle of the day and told me that someone, a mentor to her, who was in power above her, she won an award. And everybody was giving her emails and kudos and, PR about it. And he said, "Hey, stop by my office." And she thought she was going in there to get a kudos and a, "Hey, congratulations." And she walked in 10 years, she said he's never been like this to her. He said, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you, I've been getting some feedback that some of your responses lately have been a little curt, and you're kind of getting a little big for your britches, and, you need to kind of just watch your tone or something." And it's just out of left field. And she said, "Well, what are you, like, is there an instance? Like, can you give me an example?" And there was nothing he could give her. And she was so shocked and hurt. And I said, the message here is that you're getting attention, you're getting kudos, and you're a threat to power. And she said, "But he's never been like this to me. I can't believe he's been like this to me. I thought he was one of the good ones." And I'm like, you've never achieved what you just achieved. And now you're a threat to power to him. And in the message is, let me just knock her down a little bit. Like, let me put her back in her place. Like, she can't get too big for her britches. Like, oh, she won this award and I'm nervous that she's going to grow and she's going to surpass me. I have had this happen to me. I have also seen this happen to a lot of women. That is feedback that you need to recognize, talk to a coach about it, talk to a mentor, talk to a friend, and then throw it in the trash, because it is only there to make you small. It is not there to edify or help you.
So yes, preach, amen, if I can say that. Totally agree. I think when women start getting accolades, and if they accept those accolades, then it is viewed as being self-promoting rather than being an acknowledgement of an accomplishment, unfortunately. And I think the culture of the company plays a role in that. I think the culture of the senior team plays a role in that. I think there are a lot of things that contribute to that. I would venture a guess that he's not the only one who felt perhaps threatened or uncomfortable, and he may not even recognize that he is feeling threatened. In fact, I would probably bet you good money that he wouldn't have realized that that was where that was coming from for him. He truly didn't, right? I think another component to this is that women are over-mentored and under-partnered. We get so much mentorship, but we don't get the partnership, the true equal partnership or pushing partnership, high velocity partnerships, I call them, to sling each other forward, to sling women forward because of some of these things. Like it's just viewed that we're just not quite ready. We're never quite ready.
Yes.
Right? And so that's where it's like, they truly do believe, I think these mentors truly do believe in those moments that they are helping us and not realizing that their own emotions are coming into play in that particular 100%. Situation.
Yes. Talk about that with you because I know that this is something that you've experienced and seen, and I think I just wanted to shed light on it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to have these conversations, right? And there may be some people that listen that are frustrated by our discussion here. And there are others who are going to be like, yes, that happened to me, right? I think it's really important to say, look, I am not anti-man. I am not female at the expense of everyone else. I'm not. Right. Women have a role and a place and an opportunity to lead in a different way than other people do. We all bring our own uniquities. Not all women leaders are good. Not all men leaders are bad, right? There's no black and white that way, but there should be space and room for all of us. And we do have to recognize when we are allowing our own perspectives to get in the way of genuine feedback that helps people grow and become the best that they can possibly be.
Yes, love that.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your own boundaries and your own navigating of additional things that you've chosen to take on, like a new business. You are already crazy busy, crazy accomplished, and you just decided, let's just do a new business. We'll just add that to the mix. I love that, and I want to hear more about it. Can you tell us about that and how you're navigating it?
Yeah, so this is a completely different business model than what I currently have. So it's really a challenge. I'm opening something called the Legacy Collective, which is Omaha's first women's club. And it's a space for women to connect, a space for women to rest, and a space for women to grow. It's going to have programming and beautiful spaces for women to meet, and also just space for women to just be and just escape the craziness of this world. And so I am really excited about it. I'm opening it up in Omaha, Nebraska. These spaces are called third spaces. They exist for men in our society. There's country clubs, there's golf courses, there's cigar bars, there's, we have shooting ranges with clubs for men, which are great. And men kind of have built-in communities and spaces for community, and we tend to not have that. So this is what I'm creating in Omaha. And I guess your question about how do I have boundaries around that, I'm going through it right now. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm starting this business while I'm figuring out my transitions in my current role in leadership at the hospital. And also I have Brave Enough, and I cannot continue to do all of those things. So this has really been a year of upcoming transition for me. And what I keep telling myself is, I am a person of faith. I have a strong faith. And I know that oftentimes God has something for you that he's kind of preparing you for. And I just laughed to myself the other day because I'm like, I need really good boundaries this year. And then I thought, well, that's interesting that I wrote a book about boundaries 3 years ago. And 2 years ago is when I started this business plan. So obviously there was some forethought that went into that. And I wake up every day and I'm so blessed to be able to know who I am. I mean, I really feel like I just turned 50 this year and I know who I am. I don't know that I did 10 years ago. I certainly did not know who I was 15 years ago. But I know who I am now, and I know what I want my career to look like in the next 10 years. And it's very different than it was 10 years ago. And that's okay. Transitions are hard. Identity changes are hard in your life when you leave, and you know this better than anyone because you talk about this and you write about this and you empower people and teach people about this. But when you leave a career identity and you are taking on a new identity, it is like a whole transformation and lots of thought work and lots of boundaries, and requires a lot of grace and self-compassion. So I don't have it all figured out. I hope someday to write about it because I heard something 2.5, 3 years ago. I heard a woman giving a talk. She was in her 70s. She was a very successful businesswoman. She stood up. She'd owned and sold like 7 or 8 companies. And she said, I'm so-and-so, and I've had many careers. And I don't remember anything she said after that, because when she said that, I was sitting there going, oh, you can have many careers? Like, you can be an accountant and then be an entrepreneur and then be owner of a marketing firm and then own a sports arena. Like, you can do that as a woman, as a person. Like, I never had thought of it that way. Instead, my thinking was, well, gosh, I'm a doctor. I don't know how to do that. I'd like to do that, but I don't know. Oh, gosh, I'm a doctor. I spent years of my life in this. What if I don't do this? What's wrong with me that I'm a doctor and I want to do this other thing? See, I was looking at it from the wrong perspective. And when I heard her say that, I was like, why can't I open up a women's club in Omaha, Nebraska? I can figure it out. I'll figure it out. I don't know how to do it, but I'll figure out how to do it. So I think these career identities and transformations are actually really supposed to be part of our story. And we don't realize that they should be part of our story. It's a normal part of our story. Just kind of like when you change and when you grow, you might lose friendships and relationships because maybe you're not supposed to take to the next level of you or the next version of you everybody that loved the old version of you. But it hurts, right? And there's growth and there's challenge and there's struggle and yet I think that's how it's supposed to be. The more I age, the more I realize life isn't actually supposed to be easy. We're not supposed to have one career our whole life or one answer our whole life. We're supposed to change and grow and transform.
Yeah. I've always thought, there's a phrase, things happen for a reason and a season. And I think we sometimes don't give the season component of that enough weight and enough consideration.
Yeah.
And I think you just described it beautifully, just absolutely beautifully. And I'm with you. I'm early in my 50s and I am loving life. And I've made some of my biggest, boldest moves because I realized that I needed some change. The season was done. It was time for me to move on to another season. Yes. And it is terrifying when you don't know what that season is. So I will offer a little advice here to people that are listening. And it's advice that Sasha just gave, but I'm going to give it to you in a bite-sized piece. Think about kids on the monkey bars when you're swinging from one rung to the next. When you are leaving one thing, you have to have your hand on something else before you let go. Otherwise, you're in free fall. And that doesn't just mean that you know the next job you're going to. It means you've done the work, you've done the journaling, you've done the thought work that Sasha has talked about throughout our discussion today to understand what the identity shift is going to mean, what the financial shift might mean, what the relationship shift is going to mean, because it's all going to shift. And you can do it, and you can do it beautifully, and you can have a lot of fun. Monkey bars are fun when you're swinging from one to the next. It's only not fun when you miss the monkey bar and you fall and you're not prepared for it. So you can be prepared for a lot of those things simply by making sure you've got your hand on that next rung before you let go. So with that, any final words of wisdom, Sasha, and if not, then I would really love for you to close us out by talking a little bit about your Brave Enough work and how people can, work with you and get to know you and follow you.
I would say my last word of wisdom is, if you're struggling, ask for help. It's someone out there knows how to do, or knows maybe can come alongside of you. And maybe you know what you need to do, but you need someone to kind of prod you to do it. Get a coach, reach out to Jenn, reach out to me, reach out to, if it's not one of us, someone else. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you are struggling, or even if you just don't know what you're supposed to do. That's normal. Asking for help is key. And Brave Enough it's just my passion. I love it. I have a conference coming up this September for women in medicine. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's unlike any conference you've ever attended. And it's at a beautiful resort, and we have afternoons so that you can just enjoy the resort. You're going to connect with so many like-minded women there. That's called the Brave Enough Conference. I have a course that is starting in the 1st of March. It's my entry-level course. It's called Brave Balance. So if you're stuck in your career, or you're struggling with what you should be doing next, or you're just overwhelmed and chronically stressed, that's a great entry-level course. And you get me for an hour a week, and you get a great small group community of women doctors who are going through the same thing. So I also have a podcast called The Brave Enough Show. I have books, but you can find out all these things on my website, becomebraveenough.com.
Awesome. And we will put links in the show notes to all of the things that Dr. Sasha has talked about. Sasha, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your heart, and for being real with us in your car, going through this incredible journey of starting a new business and all of the things. Thank you so much for showing up and being who you are.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of the Daring Breakthroughs podcast. Thank you so much for joining Dr. Sasha and myself for this episode. If you found value, I invite you to review, like, and subscribe. And remember to check the description for free tools and resources mentioned today or related to today's episode. Lastly, let's stay connected. You'll find me everywhere at Ask Jenn Landis. That's Jenn with 2 N's. And if you need a speaker for your next event, I'd love to visit with you about that too. You can visit jennlandis.com. Until next time, share one insight you gained today with a friend and make one bold move. I dare you.